All right, spontaneous video. I'm leaning into the fear. This is scary as hell, and I'm out of my depth. But hey, I'm leaning into the fear. So it needs to be an act of bravery, an act of radical bravery and honesty, right? Which is something that I want to advocate in people. I think it's really important. It's important for myself to lean into the discomfort, to lean into the fears and investigate why they're there, in what ways are they helping us, or in which ways are they holding us back. Usually, fears are going to be holding us back. So, if it's an internal thing, I need to investigate that. So, yeah, here I am. This is yeah, uncomfortable. Uh, what I wanted to say was embrace the radical bravery that it takes to be radically honest and radically authentic. I say radically because we need to break the patterns that we're so used to. Whenever we're public facing, we try and prune ourselves. And if we're recording our environment, we're conscious about having it look presentable. So if you're doing all of that before you even hit record, you know that you're not authentic in those regards. But yet you try to present as if you are an authentic character, right? When you're in front of the camera, when you're in front of people, when you're talking in any social environment, you are presenting that you are this authentic person and that you have morals and that you have, you know, you're like a really good person and you have your failings and whatnot. But overall, you'd say that maybe 80% you're a good, honest person. So you're already a bit of a contradiction. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're making allowances for that 20%. That's the background stuff that no one needs to know about. And arguably, when it comes to media and presentation, when we look at all the data into like what makes an amazing thumbnail on YouTube videos, for example, we that's a science. We're critiquing all the things that don't work and we're boosting all the things that do work. And what it comes down to is a formula and a structure that people have said this has proven to work better. It's just a fact. So then people just grab onto that. And so we have always pruned ourselves. We have always edited how we appear. I'm calling into question that as just a tiny example, but really it encompasses everything. What I mean is you can't just choose when you're honest. And you can't choose when you're authentic. Part of the ick that we have to get over is this uh this ego driven necessity to always present ourselves as we want to be seen, as we think of ourselves. It's a kind of fake it till you make it thing, and it plays throughout society. It's everywhere. If you really look into your ego and the narratives that you tell yourself, you tell yourself, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I won't stand for this, and I'll make allowances for that. And if people really got to know me, they would understand all of these nuances in my morals and in my character, right? Fine, we all have that. It's just the way you are most genuinely and authentically when you're by yourself and you know no one is watching. That is you at your most authentic. And if you don't behave like that everywhere, then you're not being completely authentic. And so you're at a manageable level, a level that we as a society and as individuals prescribe to. It's this, we can make allowances for these because yeah, you might authentically be lazy and untidy the most of times, and only when you have company around do you actually make a fuss and you have to make an effort. Um, as individuals and as a society, it's kind of like an unspoken thing, but we all do it to certain degrees. For some people, they care less and less as they get older. For some people, it's part of their character, and so they have to just carry on this charade, this lie. um, it, but we're all used to that, and it's an manageable level. It's just I'm still saying that that is an example of everyday truth that happens to all of us, and we make allowances because it's manageable. Yet we still have to say that it's an example, a tiny little example, personal example of us being not fully authentic. What I'm getting at is if we are a contradiction to ourselves, i.e., if my ego says I'm this and that, and my truth when I'm by myself is that I'm not this and that, and I'm increasingly becoming further away from who I say I am and who I actually am in the privacy of my own home, my own room. Straight after a shower, I've just come out and I have a thought in my mind. It's a higher thought, and it takes great bravery for me to go, "Oh, what if I just record this?" I don't have to do anything with it, but the intention is to put it out there as like a ongoing vlog of my higher thoughts, all this stuff about resource and higher talk and everything. uh Anyway, the first point was about bravery, and the second point is about contradiction, and it goes alongside this narrative of pursuing to be more authentic fully everywhere you go. And it comes from a desire to be honest and to be brave and to be authentic, right? To be genuine. That then leads into, if you notice inconsistencies within you, conflicting narratives, the narrative that we tell ourselves that our ego latches onto and says, this is us, but then the inconsistency and the contradiction in reality when we observe parts of our nature and our actual desires, our actual preferences, if we're honest with ourselves, if we ask ourselves, in this moment, what do I actually want to do? And in this moment, what do I tell people that I want to do? And if they are a contradiction or an inconsistency, explore that, put a pin in that, and realize that that is within you. And my belief is that we don't do well with inconsistencies and contradictions. Basically, they are examples of falsities. I think it's in my nature to find truth, right? And so that's why I've taken it upon myself to try and embody more honesty and more authenticity as a sort of experiment on myself to see how far I can take it and how it impacts my life and how it impacts, more importantly, my perceptions of how I believe things and see things and feel about other people perceiving me, and judgment and criticism and all in all, maybe ways that I hold myself back. If I understand the narratives and I bring that into light and I question it and I go, that's completely irrational and illogical, and then I dig deeper and I find the origins of it, then I better understand myself, and I think that's good. So all of this is coming together. I want to call for radical honesty, and that requires a lot of bravery. So radical bravery in whatever way you want to point the magnifying glass to yourself. And the other thing is, yes, I don't think our bodies handle um, inconsistencies and falsities. We want truth, and so Maybe I can make another video about physical ailments. I think our bodies, our minds, our ego, our emotions, all of that we think is us. I think it all doesn't handle contradiction and falsehoods very well. I think it it rejects falsehoods, and they are belief systems or embodiments with our ego. It can be anything that you, any kind of thought form that you attach yourself to and you try to exemplify. If that picture of who you are or think you are and believe is in direct contradiction to what actually is and has been in recent history, if you are showing the patterns of becoming some other person and your mind and your ego just won't allow yourself to believe it, because I think we check ourselves a lot of the time, and that's good. That's a form of editing, but that's a form of like staying within boundaries, the boundaries of what we feel comfortable with. So before the trigger of fear or before the trigger of anxiety, we stay within these boundaries. Before the trigger of depression, we stay within these boundaries and we check ourselves. So at the ends of these boundaries, we get different warnings. So if our ego says, oh, you've been like super, for example, like you've been super lazy recently and you've cut yourself a lot of slack, and that's not who you say you are. And it's not what you tell people when people ask you how you've been and how you are and what you've been up to. And, yeah, they just ask you basic, standard, generalized questions. If you start lying to yourself, you lie out loud, you make up for truths, then you're already deeply entrenched in that pattern of lying to yourself and being not authentic enough, not being honest. And so you have these falsities that you carry around all the time, and you make that as part of your, you know, like you'll take it to your grave kind of thing, part of your ego. And I think we all have that in different levels. I've been trying to mitigate that as much as possible. I just believe that most people, they still find that too difficult. And that's a pattern that I broke a long time ago. Well, I've been heavily on top of that, let's say. I I'm not even sure if I can break any patterns entirely. I think I can just bring them under control. Potentially. So I think one of the things that the hardest things that we have to acknowledge is the contradictions that we have within us. So be aware of them and then lean into the fears and the different things that come up to say stay within the boundary, because that comfort zone is nice in times of tranquility and peace and perfect contentment, but we're, for the large part, totally discontent. We're discontented on so many different levels, and the future is completely unpredictable, unstable. We don't know ourselves, never mind our place in the future and our place in the present. We're so disconnected. Anyway, I don't want to rant, but as you can see, that's part of my character. I get passionate about this kind of stuff. This is a new frontier that I'm discovering, and my inspired thoughts are just kind of manifesting, and I think it's good to freestyle them out. I also, yeah, acknowledge it's good to also edit, That's why it's easier to consume. People don't switch off. It's just that again is a contradiction to something that I think is important, which is complete authenticity. I'm leaning into that. So going to the extreme nature. This is more of an extreme nature. Yeah, I press pause a couple times, but you know, I'm trying to stay within a new comfort level where I can accept more authenticity. I desire that over the edited version because I feel that the more I see unfiltered, pure, raw authenticity, then that's way more believable. It's way more honest. And if I can exemplify more honesty, then hopefully people will connect with my true intention to be honest and find truth and to investigate falsities. Yeah, I think if we do that for ourselves, we have a much better chance of actually understanding ourselves. And then when we truly understand more of our true nature at any given time, in the present moment, ideally, then we can choose to make radical changes because they are no longer in conflict with the narratives that we hold on to in the past, the character that we claim we are and have been. If we realize that the truth of the matter is, when we ask ourselves at any given moment, what do I actually want to do right now? And if the answer is pretty much the same over a few days, over a few weeks, how long does it take before you realize, oh, I'm actually not who I say I am or think I am? My preferences are elsewhere. And potentially, if that's been happening for a long enough time, that contradiction and that falsehood that you carry around, at what point does a false belief turn into something that's going to hold you back and something that's going to make you feel pain and make you feel some form of suffering, some form of rejection? Because I think if you actually want to be honest to yourself, you have to reject the falsities. And like with everything, being self aware is the first step and the most important step to any kind of higher understanding. So, yeah, I'll leave you with that.